Hello everybody, this is D6 Damager, and I'm playing in a 5th edition Shadowrun RPG with some of my friends on Roll20.net. And I thought I would just go into my character a little bit for you and show you the nuts and bolts, my character background, and how I made it and what I was thinking before the game actually. So this is sort of a prequel to the actual campaign, which I'll be posting online. And with that, here we go. So my game master, he decided to give us a few extra points of karma and skill points if we could come up with a character background that would give him some adventure hooks as well, because he wants to do his own homebrew versus a canned adventure for Shadowrun. So I'll go through my background first. I'll go ahead and read this to you because I know some of you guys like to hobby while you're listening to these things. I know I do. I paint all the time to RPGs on YouTube. So here we go. What the Sixth World calls Technomancer a hacker, my kind calls mind thief. For you see, in the Sealy court of the Tuatha de Danann there is not a matrix. However, the magical translation are the Koimedai. The Koimedai are willing, living storage vessels of memory and emotions of the nobility of the Fae, to be tapped as a resource for the endless intrigues from centuries of life. Groups of Koimedai are sometimes referred to as keepers, and like the Sixth World, the network is protected from mind thieves not by corporate spiders, but crows. The lords of the Court of Shadows, their Koimedai and crows, would have a deep impact on this young pixie's life. Philibert Valentif was born in France around 2066 with black hair, silver eyes, and raven wings. My pixie parents, not enjoying the Sixth World France during this time frame, fled to Tir Nanog for a while, and then eventually on to Tuatha de Danann, where it turns out they were a minor noble family whose exile had been lifted by my birth, for reasons not explained to me, although likely due to some court intrigue. I was raised in the old ways of the Sealy court in etiquette and social graces, but not really fitting in. Life was difficult for me there, as I was looked down upon for not being noble enough or exhibiting proper magical talent, beyond what all normal pixies could do, that is, yet at the same time lauded for my pulchritutinous features. This led to many acts of defiance in my youth that quite often got me into severe trouble, but I didn't care about any of it and only vowed to get even with whomever had caught me next time. Only my force of personality carried me through these situations, and I was often put to use as a herald or messenger as a consequence, and the fact that I might be disposed of, as these were hazardous occupations in the court. Time and time again, however, I was able to talk my way out of peril or end the matter with a crossbow bolt. During my adulthood, late bloomer, my abilities as a technomancer manifested, and just like that, seemingly overnight, I had worth in the esteem of the lords of the Court of Shadows. These abilities were not shunned like in the outside world, in fact, quite the opposite. I received many gifts and free lessons, many of which I accepted, in my abilities from both Sealy and unsealy lords who wanted to add me to their household. You see, all lords were looking to add to their security network of crows, and oftentimes these individuals had to be brought in from the outside, which was simply not a fashionable practice. My parents, however, refused to sign me off as a Camarilla member to any lord, and for a while they succeeded. However, the lords have centuries of guile and patience, and the intrigue as to whose asset I was to become as my skills in mind thievery increased eventually became quite aggressive. On my 30th birthday, my family and I abruptly fled back to the Sixth World. When we returned, only 360 days of real time had passed in the Sixth World, and we were now standing in the newly formed nation of Brocelian Forest, for which we were processed as citizens and issued national sins immediately. We were not allowed to travel back to Tuatha de Danann under any circumstances. I was soon to discover that fled was not the correct term, as I learned my parents had struck a bargain with an unsealy lord they refused to name. They wanted me to have a free life as a metahuman of the Sixth World and not a fae of the court. I was become his agent in the Sixth World, and secure mortals who were willing to make the bargain to become Koimedai. Not any individual would do. They had to be of a stable mind, clean billing of health, no cyberware, and 100% willing of their own volition. I was to be the middleman in helping to locate these individuals, smuggle them back to Brocelian Forest to be transported to their bargaining ritual in Tuatha de Danann. My parents remained in Brocelian Forest as advisors to the Corrigan Council and to facilitate the final transportation of the potential Koimedai candidates. This put my skills to the test. As to the rest of the world, I was clearly human trafficking for something they couldn't possibly hope to understand. Shadowrunners often made the perfect candidates to become Komidai, as they were usually off the grid, and many were magical in nature and therefore had little to no cyberware and better than average mental capabilities. And a lot of runners were tired of the shadows and looking for a way out. I ran with several groups, putting my social and hacking skills to work in the hopes of finding new candidates. I made good connections and had some close runs. On one particular run, I almost met my demise at the hands of a proto-sapient vampire while in the Az technology grid in a narrow escape. The experience was so traumatic that I have been terrified of proto-sapients ever since. I eventually settled in Seattle, one of the largest melting pots in the world, and a haven to Shadowrunners. I eventually earned the street name of Siege, as over time, no social or matrix bearer could stop me yet. In 2072, I received a message from parents stating that they were returning to Tuatha De Danann temporarily, and I've not heard from them since. Over the course of 9 years, I sent approximately 16 men and women to Brocelian Forest. I never once heard back if they were successful candidates or not. None ever returned. My return communique was always the same. Excellent work. Please notify 10 days prior of the next shipment. Over time, with my connections made in the shadows and friends I had made on runs, I began to feel what I was doing for the court was definitely not right, but that I was trapped. I dared not break the compact that my parents had made. My regrets began to impact my decision-making. Even though Koimodai were treated lavishly and lived in splendor, I began to feel that they were no better than this world's corporate wage slaves who never could quit. I had also begun to enjoy living in the Sixth World despite its ups and downs versus life in Tuatha De Danann. In June of 2074, I sent what I decided to be my final candidate, a human female, off to Broceliand. However, no return communique came back. After a few weeks, I became concerned and paranoid. My contacts from Brocelian Forest were not responding either. I returned to Brocelian to meet with my politician friend, Amarante. His place was deserted. After some searching, I found an envelope with the address to a bank in Seattle. Inside the envelope was the key to a safety deposit box. Spending my remaining funds, I returned to Seattle as quickly as possible. At the bank, inside the safety deposit box was a handwritten note. It read, "One of the keepers has escaped. You have been blamed. You must hide. They are coming." Well, Drek. So, as you may have garnered, I am a Pixie, and I'm kind of a hybrid character as a Technomancer face. So, kind of regular stats here. Age 36, male. Height is 1 foot 6 inches. I weigh 19 pounds. Don't have any street cred or notoriety or public awareness yet. I have 0 karma. So looking at my attributes, the first attribute here is what my stat actually is, and then to the right of the slash is the maximum. So 2 out of 2 body. As a Pixie, you just don't get a whole lot. That's their major downside, but they get a lot of upsides to compensate that, but we'll see if I survive the first firefight. Agility 3 out of 8, reaction 3 out of 8, strength 2 out of 5, willpower 6 out of 8, logic 5 out of 7, intuition 5 out of 7, charisma 7 out of 8, and then edge 2 out of 7. It doesn't show it here because of the way this character sheet is written, but I also have a magic of 1 just for being a Pixie. And my essence is 6.0. I have 0 cyberware. Initiative 7 plus 1d6. Matrix initiative 7 plus 1d6. Astral initiative 10 plus 2d6. Composure 13. Judge intentions 12. Memory 11. Lift carry 2. And of course, Pixies can fly times 2 times 6 and plus 2 meters. So my physical limit is 2, which is pretty pathetic. Mental limit is 7, and my social limit is 9. And then, like I said, we got a few extra skill points for our background and karma. So I'll go over the qualities first before I get into skills. So to be a Pixie, you got to actually pay 15 karma. And then with that comes Astral Perception, Concealment, which is self-only. And that basically gives a -1 die for people to try to find me if I'm hiding. Vanishing, which a lot of people are confused about, but we're kind of playing it like the Beast rules, where you disappear on the spot and you reappear on the same spot, but you can't do anything while you're gone. So some people think that's game breaking, but in all honesty, it can be defeated pretty easily. Uneducated, which basically means that I cannot default on any logic or mental skills on knowledge skills. I have to actually be trained on it. Otaku to Technomancer just gives me a bonus to drain. Code block is a negative thing, which means it's very difficult for me to hide while I'm in the Matrix. even though ironically I can hide very well in the real world. I was issued a National Sin, which is in my background, for Brazilian Forest. Phobia, uncommon, mild proto-sapiens, that goes in the background about that proto-sapient vampire. So I'm scared of them. And then poor self-control, vindictive. So like I said, I like to get even with the people rather than just take it on the chin, even though I'm a negotiator, so I have to keep that in check. So those are my qualities. I've spent my full amount of karma, minus 25, plus 25 to zero it all out. And then going over to skills, software 6, compiling and registering. These are the Technomancer skills. And skill group, cracking 5, so that gives me 5 in cyber combat, electronic warfare, and hacking. Computer 4, decompiling. 4, archery. I didn't take a lot of combat skills because a lot of people in my party already are pretty good at combat. So just to be something different, I just took archery, and I'm specialized in crossbows, so that'll actually give me 6 dice when shooting a crossbow. And crossbows in Shadowrun are a little more modern. They self-load, they have cartridges. You can also put smart links into them and that type of thing. So it's it can make sense even though I'm a little tiny pixie. Con, these are my social skills. 4, etiquette 4, negotiation 4, a sensing, because I do have astral perception, I wanted to be able to use it. So I can, not great at it, but at least I can try. Palming 2, forgery 1, pistols 1, so I can shoot a gun. Probably what I'll end up doing is just getting like a taser or something like that, and I'm not really worried about being a gunslinger. Native is English, and then I took a lot of languages. So 4 in Spirithial, 3 in French, 3 in Orzet, which is the Orc language, Aztlan Spanish 2, Navajo 2, and then these are some of my knowledge skills. So just business in general 2, corporate security 2, organized crime 2, hardware 1, intimidation 1, medicine 1, and perception 1. So coming down to my contacts, I have some pretty good contacts. Instead of getting a bunch, I tried to get a little higher loyalty and connections. So I have Mr. Johnson, loyalty 2, and connection 3. Brazilian politician, so this also pairs up with my background story, loyalty 2, connection 3, although I don't know his whereabouts at this particular time. Offense, loyalty 2, and connection 3, and then an arms dealer, loyalty 1 and connection 2. So the fence and arms dealer seems like kind of the same thing, but I just kind of wanted to be a little bit more specific about trading in weapons versus fence, which I would say is like getting rid of maybe anything. Oh, and then going over to here, I basically spent all my cash. I used resources as my dump stat basically in character creation, so I didn't have much money to begin with. Luckily, you don't really need a whole lot as a face or a Technomancer because you don't have to buy a lot of those expensive, computer decks or, software programs or cyberware. So I got fake weapon license rating 3 and fake toxin license because not that I have drugs, but I have some Narcojet arrow crossbow bolts, which you'll see right here. So I have a heavy crossbow. I put a smart link in it. Got 20 bolts with 20 barbed heads, which just gives me a bonus on the damage. And 4 injection bolts, both with Narcojet, so that I can put some people to sleep. And then I picked up an Argentum Coat, which this is kind of like a custom-made high society armor. It looks like a business suit, so it kind of fits within with me being a face. I did make some modifications to it, and that it has some gel packs, which kicks the rating up by 2. So instead of armor rating 12, it actually has an armor rating of 14. And it gives me social limit +1 while I'm wearing it. I can conceal things -3. And then if I use the wireless bonus, I get +1 to social tests. And then I also have a custom ballistics mask, and this is how I'm able to use the smart link. But I also added in thermographic vision, image link, and gas mask. And then I don't have an actual cyber deck, but because I'm a Technomancer, I don't need one. But everything I just put my stats in here because you have to kind of translate your resonance and mental stats into your attack, sleaze, device rating, data processing, and firewall. So my attack is a 7, sleaze is 5, device rating 6, data processing 5, firewall 6, which is pretty decent. And then gear, I have a gold certified cred stick. I have the MCT Blue Defender Comlink, which is a rating 3, but it actually has a firewall of 5. We've got a rating 3 medikit, a tag eraser, 10 data chips, 5 stealth tags. And then under spells, preparations, complex forms, these are my complex forms for being a Technomancer. So I have Cleaner, Editor, Static Veil, Puppeteer, Transcendent Grid, and Resonant Spike. And that is pretty much my character in a nutshell. So like I said, in my party there is going to be 4 other guys playing. I know most of them are, 2 of the guys are very new. They've never played like RPGs in general. So they kind of I helped them make their characters, and they made sort of basic guys. One's a magician, and the other is a rigger. So they also have some pretty good combat abilities. And then I'm rolling with another 2 guys, which I've never met before. One is playing a street samurai troll, and the other one is playing a human street samurai, which I don't know a whole lot about. And I believe the troll also has some magic abilities too. So I kind of went for full support here. I'm not the greatest in combat. When we get into combat, I'm going to be looking to hack the smart links or do some other things that cause disruption. Eventually I'll probably get into just like throwing grenades and things like that, or just hiding if there's not something I can actually hack. But I've been kind of the face already, and kind of talking my way through things. And so looking forward to playing this character. Hopefully I'll live with my body too. That's a concern of mine, but we'll see how long I last in the game. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.